First contact shock. The vast chamber of the Galactic Federation's Council Hall buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from 1,000 worlds shifted in their seats, appendages twitching and bioluminescent patterns flickering across scaled and furred hides. At the center of it all, looking comically small and vulnerable, stood a single human. Ambassador Sarah Chen took a deep breath, her heart racing beneath her formal attire. She was the first human to set foot in this hallowed hall, tasked with representing Earth in its bid to join the interstellar community. The silence that fell as she stepped up to the podium was deafening. Esteemed members of the Galactic Federation, Sarah began, her voice steady despite her nerves. I come before you today as a representative of humanity, a species that has only recently taken its first steps beyond our home solar system. We are young, we are eager, and we are honored by this opportunity to join your ranks. A low murmur rippled through the assembled aliens. Many leaned forward, studying the strange bipedal creature addressing them. Humans were an anomaly in the galactic community, a species that had achieved spaceflight despite evolving on a world classified as a deathworld due to its extreme conditions and aggressive fauna. High Counselor Zixtera, a being of shimmering energy contained within a translucent exoskeleton, raised a tendril. Ambassador Chen, while we appreciate your species' enthusiasm, we must express our concerns. Humans come from a world that has shaped you into formidable beings. How can we be certain that your kind will not pose a threat to the peace we have cultivated for millennia? Sarah had anticipated this question. She smiled, spreading her hands in a gesture of openness. High Counselor, it's true that Earth has presented us with many challenges, but those very challenges have taught us the value of cooperation, of finding peaceful solutions to conflicts. We've learned that our greatest strength lies not in domination, but in collaboration. She paused, looking around the room. To demonstrate our commitment to peace and our eagerness to learn, we propose a cultural exchange. Allow a group of human students to attend your most prestigious interstellar academy. Let them learn alongside the brightest young minds of the Federation. Through this, we can begin to bridge the gap between our worlds. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives chittered excitedly at the prospect, while others buzzed with concern. High Counselor Zixtera raised his tendrils, calling for order. A bold proposal, Ambassador, Zixtera said once the noise had died down, but one that may have merit. We will need time to deliberate. Sarah nodded, stepping back from the podium. As she made her way to the waiting area, she couldn't help but overhear snippets of conversation. Did you see how solid it looks? No wonder they survived on a death world. But they seem so fragile. How do they manage without carapaces or energy fields? I heard they have endoskeletons made of calcium. Imagine walking around with rocks inside you. Sarah suppressed a chuckle. If they thought humans were strange now, just wait until they got to know them better. 3 standard galactic cycles later, about 2 Earth weeks, Sarah found herself back in the council hall. The chamber was packed, the air thick with anticipation. High Counselor Zixtera's voice rang out, silencing the murmurs. After much deliberation, the Council has reached a decision. We hereby extend an invitation to humanity to send a delegation of students to the Central Galactic Academy on Nexus Prime. This exchange will serve as a probationary period, during which we will assess humanity's readiness to join the Federation. Sarah's heart soared. It wasn't full membership, but it was a start, a chance to prove that humanity could be a valuable addition to the galactic community. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Across Earth, millions of young people applied for the chance to be part of this historic exchange. After a grueling selection process, a group of 50 students was chosen, a diverse mix of backgrounds, skills, and personalities that represented the best humanity had to offer. As the day of departure approached, Sarah found herself addressing the chosen students in a hangar at the newly constructed lunar spaceport. You're about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime, she told them, looking into their eager faces. You'll be the first humans to set foot on Nexus Prime, to study alongside beings from across the galaxy. It won't be easy. You'll face challenges you can't even imagine yet. But remember, you carry the hopes and dreams of all humanity with you. Make us proud. The students boarded the sleek Federation transport, a vessel that seemed to defy the laws of physics as humans understood them. As it rose silently into the star-studded sky, Sarah watched it go, a mixture of pride and apprehension swirling in her chest. On Nexus Prime, news of the incoming human students had caused quite a stir. The Central Galactic Academy, a sprawling complex of impossible architecture and advanced technology, buzzed with excitement and trepidation. Professor Lyrics, a Volcran scholar known for his expertise in xenobiology, paced nervously in his office. His iridescent scales shimmered with each agitated movement. "Deathworlders! Axtell!" he exclaimed to his assistant, a young Quilkshan whose tentacles were busy organizing data crystals. "How are we supposed to accommodate beings evolved to survive constant mortal peril? What if they see our harmless native fauna as potential prey?" Axel's bioluminescent patterns pulsed soothingly. "Professor, I've been studying the data packets sent by the humans. They seem to be a remarkably adaptable species. I'm sure they'll manage." Before Lyrics could respond, a chime sounded, indicating an incoming transmission. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the face of Dean Zixis, the Academy's venerable administrator. "Professor Lyrics," the Dean's gravelly voice filled the room, "I trust you're prepared for our new arrivals." Lyrics straightened, trying to project confidence. "Of course, Dean Zixis. We've made all necessary arrangements, though I must admit I have some concerns about—" "Excellent," Dean Zixis interrupted. "Because they've just entered orbit. You'll be greeting them at the reception hall in 1 standard hour. I expect you to make them feel welcome." The transmission cut off, leaving Lyrics staring at empty air. He turned to Axel, his scales now a pale shade of anxiety. 1 hour. But I haven't even finished cataloging all the potential biohazards they might introduce. Axel gently guided the professor towards the door. Perhaps it's best to meet them first, before jumping to conclusions. After all, they did manage interstellar travel without destroying themselves. As they made their way to the reception hall, streams of excited students flowed through the Academy's corridors. News of the humans' arrival had spread like wildfire, and everyone wanted a glimpse of these mysterious Deathworlders. The reception hall, a vast chamber with a transparent dome, offering a breathtaking view of Nexus Prime's 3 moons, was packed by the time Lyrics and Axel arrived. Dean Zixis stood at the front, his ancient, tree-like form commanding respect. A hush fell over the crowd as the doors slid open. 50 humans walked in, their eyes wide with wonder as they took in their alien surroundings. They moved with a grace that surprised many of the watching aliens, their soft, vulnerable-looking forms belying the strength hidden within. At the front of the group stood Jason Chen, Sarah's nephew and the elected leader of the human delegation. He stepped forward, a warm smile on his face. "On behalf of humanity, we thank you for this incredible opportunity," Jason said, his voice clear and confident. "We come here not just to learn, but to share, to build bridges between our worlds, and to work towards a future where we stand united among the stars." A ripple of appreciative murmurs swept through the crowd. Dean Zixis stepped forward, extending a gnarled branch in greeting. "Welcome, young humans, to the Central Galactic Academy. May your time here be enlightening for us all." As the formal greetings concluded and the humans began to mingle with their alien counterparts, Professor Lyrics found himself approached by a small group of human students. Their curious gazes made him nervous, but he steeled himself. "Professor Lyrics," one of them, a young woman with dark skin and bright eyes, addressed him. "We've read some of your papers on xenobiology. We were hoping you could tell us more about the native life forms of Nexus Prime." Lyrics blinked in surprise. These Deathworlders had read his work. "Oh, well, yes, I suppose I could. Wait, you're interested in our native fauna? but surely they must seem quite tame compared to the beasts of your world." The students exchanged glances, then burst into laughter. "Professor," another student, a lanky young man, said with a grin, "most of us have never encountered anything more dangerous than a house cat. We're from cities, not jungles. Your creatures are fascinatingly alien to us." As Lyrics found himself drawn into an animated discussion about Nexus Prime's ecosystem, he felt his preconceptions beginning to crumble. Perhaps, he thought, there was more to these humans than met the eye. Across the room, Jason Chen was deep in conversation with a group of alien students, their forms as varied as the stars visible through the dome above. One of them, a crystalline being named Xerexa, voiced a question that had been on many minds. Is it true that humans only have 5 senses? How do you navigate without electromagnetic perception or quantum entanglement communication? Jason laughed. It's true, we're pretty limited in that regard, but we've learned to make the most of what we have. And who knows? Maybe spending time here will awaken some latent abilities we didn't know we had. As the reception continued, a sense of cautious optimism filled the air. The human students, far from being the brutish deathworlders many had feared, were proving to be curious, friendly, and eager to learn. And the alien students and faculty, initially wary, found themselves intrigued by these strange, resilient beings. Yet beneath the excitement and goodwill, challenges loomed. The humans would soon face classes using technology far beyond their understanding, physical environments their bodies weren't adapted for, and cultural differences that would test their diplomacy and adaptability. As the 3 moons of Nexus Prime rose high in the alien sky, casting their multi-hued light over the academy, the human students prepared for their first night on this strange new world. Their adventure was just beginning, and the true test of humanity's place among the stars lay ahead. The first chapter of this grand experiment in galactic cooperation had been written. What the next would bring, only time would tell. Academic challenges. The first rays of Nexus Prime's binary suns streamed through the crystalline walls of the dormitory, bathing the room in a soft violet glow. Jason Chen stirred, momentarily disoriented by the alien environment. It had been 2 standard galactic weeks since the human students had arrived at the Central Galactic Academy, and the novelty of their surroundings had yet to wear off. As Jason dressed in the adaptive smart fabric uniform provided by the Academy, he couldn't help but marvel at how it shifted and changed to maintain optimal temperature and protection. It was just one of the countless examples of advanced technology that the humans were still struggling to comprehend. Ready for another day of feeling like the galaxy's slowest learners? His roommate, Mike Okonkwo, asked with a wry grin as he emerged from the sonic shower. Jason chuckled, but there was a hint of frustration in his voice. We knew it would be tough, but I don't think any of us realized just how far behind we'd be. As they made their way to the central atrium for breakfast, they passed groups of alien students engaged in activities that still seemed like magic to human eyes. A cluster of axolotl with their tentacled bodies and multifaceted eyes were solving complex quantum equations by manipulating holographic symbols in midair. Nearby, a pair of energy beings from the Zeta Reticuli system were practicing some form of psychic communication, their auras pulsing with information. Sometimes I feel like we're cavemen who've suddenly been dropped into a space station, Mike muttered. Jason nodded in agreement. The past 2 weeks had been a humbling experience for the human students. While they excelled in subjects like history, literature, and some areas of biology, they found themselves woefully unprepared for the advanced physics, mathematics, and technology courses that formed the core of the Academy's curriculum. In the atrium, they joined their fellow humans and a diverse group of alien friends they'd made. Xerexa, the crystalline being Jason had met at the reception, waved them over with a faceted appendage. Greetings, Jason and Mike. Are you prepared for Professor Quilks's lecture on hyperdimensional calculus today? The humans exchanged a look of resigned dread. As ready as we'll ever be, Jason replied, trying to sound optimistic. As they ate their breakfast, a nutrient-rich gel that adapted its flavor to each species' preferences. The conversation turned to the challenges they'd been facing. "I still can't believe I failed the basic telekinesis aptitude test," said Sofia Rodriguez, a brilliant physicist who had been top of her class back on Earth. "I mean, I know humans aren't supposed to have those abilities, but it's still frustrating." Xerx's crystalline form shimmered with sympathy. "Do not be discouraged, Sophia. Your species has many other strengths. Just yesterday, in our xenobiology practical, you demonstrated a remarkable ability to think creatively about evolutionary pressures." Even Professor Lyrics was impressed. Jason perked up at this. It was true. While the humans struggled with the advanced technology and some of the more esoteric subjects, they had shown surprising aptitude in areas that required lateral thinking and practical problem-solving. Their conversation was interrupted by a chime, signaling the start of classes. The students hurried off to their respective lectures, the humans bracing themselves for another day of mental gymnastics. In Professor Quilks's hyperdimensional calculus class, the human students found themselves once again struggling to keep up. The Quilksian professor, a being of pure mathematical thought contained within a shimmering force field, projected complex equations directly into the students' minds. While most of the alien students absorbed and processed the information with ease, the humans were left with headaches and a sense of vertigo. Jason gritted his teeth, trying to force his brain to comprehend concepts it had never evolved to handle. Halfway through the lecture, however, something unexpected happened. As Professor Quilks posed a particularly challenging problem involving the calculation of probability curves across multiple branching timelines, Jason had a sudden flash of insight. "Excuse me, Professor." "Excuse me, Professor," Jason said, raising his hand. The shimmering form of Professor Quilks paused, surprise rippling through its energy field. "Yes, Student Chen. I think I might have an alternative approach to this problem," Jason said, his voice gaining confidence as he spoke. "Instead of trying to calculate each timeline individually, what if we used a model similar to fluid dynamics to represent the flow of probability?" A hush fell over the classroom. The alien students turned to stare at Jason, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disbelief. Professor Quilks's form pulsed rapidly, a sign of intense thought. "Intriguing," the professor said after a moment. "Please, elaborate." As Jason explained his idea, using analogies from earth sciences to illustrate his points, he noticed something strange. The other human students were nodding along, their eyes lighting up with understanding. Even some of the alien students seemed to be grasping the concept more easily through Jason's explanation. By the end of the class, what had started as a struggle had turned into a collaborative effort. Alien students were excitedly discussing the implications of Jason's approach with their human counterparts, and Professor Quilks was practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "Remarkable, Student Chen," the professor exclaimed. "Your species' ability to draw connections between seemingly unrelated concepts is truly impressive. This warrants further study." As they left the classroom, Jason found himself surrounded by his fellow humans, all talking excitedly. "That was amazing, Jason," Sophia said, her eyes shining. "The way you explained it, I could actually visualize the probability flows." Mike clapped him on the back. "Maybe we're not so behind after all, eh?" Their excitement was infectious, spreading to their alien friends as well. Xerxe approached, its crystalline form glowing with a warm light. "Your performance today was most impressive, Jason," it said. "I believe you've demonstrated one of your species' unique strengths, the ability to think outside the box, as you say." As word of Jason's innovative approach spread through the academy, the human students found themselves the center of attention for a change. Alien students, and even some faculty members, sought them out, curious about their perspectives on various academic challenges. However, not everyone was thrilled with this turn of events. As Jason and his friends made their way to the practical engineering lab, they overheard a group of Volcrin students speaking in hushed tones. "It's just a fluke," one of them was saying, scales shimmering with agitation. These humans can't possibly compete with species that have been part of galactic society for millennia. I don't know, another replied, sounding uncertain. They seem to have a knack for finding unconventional solutions. It could give them an edge in certain fields. An edge? The first Volcran scoffed. They can barely operate a standard matter replicator without help. They're primitive, and no amount of clever thinking will change that. Jason felt a surge of anger, but Mike put a restraining hand on his arm. Not worth it, mate, he murmured. We'll prove them wrong with our actions, not arguments. The practical engineering lab proved to be another opportunity for the humans to showcase their unique abilities. The challenge of the day was to design and construct a miniature terraforming device capable of creating a habitable environment within a sealed container. While the alien students immediately began programming advanced nanotech assemblers, the humans found themselves at a loss. The technology was simply beyond their current understanding. But as they stared at the pile of components before them, an idea began to form. "Hey," Sophia said, picking up what looked like a crystalline power cell, "doesn't this remind you of those bioluminescent bacteria we studied in xenobiology?" Jason's eyes lit up. "You're right. And look at this," he said, holding up a thin, flexible sheet of some unknown material. "It's got properties similar to those morphic plants from Epsilon Eridani." Working together, the human students began to assemble their device using principles borrowed from Earth's ecosystems. They created a self-sustaining cycle of synthetic organisms, each performing a specific function in the miniature environment. As the deadline approached, Professor Zyctera, a being of pure energy contained within an exoskeleton, floated from station to station, evaluating the students' work. When he reached the human team, his energy field flickered with surprise. "Fascinating," he said, leaning in to examine their creation. "You've taken a completely biological approach to the problem. How did you arrive at this solution?" Jason explained their thought process, drawing parallels between the components they were given and natural systems they were familiar with. As he spoke, he noticed other students gathering around, listening intently. "Remarkable," Professor Zyctera said when Jason had finished. "While not as efficient as some of the nanotech solutions, your device shows a level of adaptability and resilience that is quite impressive. It could continue functioning even in conditions that might disable more advanced systems." As they left the lab, spirits high from their success, Jason and his friends found themselves approached by a group of alien students, including some of the Volcrans they had overheard earlier. "We may have misjudged you," one of the Volcrans said, scales shifting in what Jason had learned was a sign of embarrassment. "Your approach to problems is unlike anything we've encountered before. Perhaps there is much we could learn from each other." Jason smiled, extending his hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a moment's hesitation, the Volcran extended a scaled appendage to shake it. "We'd be happy to exchange ideas," Jason said. "After all, isn't that what we're all here for?" As they walked away, Mike nudged Jason with his elbow. "Look at you, Ambassador," he teased. "Next thing you know, you'll be negotiating interstellar treaties." Jason laughed, but there was a thoughtful look in his eyes. They had overcome some significant hurdles in the past weeks, but he knew there were greater challenges ahead. The Academy was just the beginning. The true test would be proving humanity's worth to the wider galactic community. As they reached their dormitory, the twin suns of Nexus Prime were setting, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of purple and gold. Jason paused for a moment to take in the alien beauty. "You know," he said to his friends, "I think we might just have a chance here. We may not have the most advanced technology or the most evolved abilities, but we got something unique to offer." Sophia nodded, her expression determined. "We've got the human element," she said, "and that's not something to be underestimated." As they entered their rooms, ready to rest and prepare for another day of challenges and discoveries, there was a new sense of purpose among the human students. They had taken their first steps towards proving their worth in this vast, advanced galactic society. The journey ahead would be difficult, but for the first time since their arrival, they felt truly ready to face it. The human element, it seemed, was beginning to make its mark on the stars. The survival challenge. The Central Galactic Academy's grand amphitheater buzzed with excitement. Students of all species packed the tiered seating, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. At the center of the stage stood Dean Zixis, his ancient, tree-like form commanding attention as he addressed the assembled crowd. Young scholars, his voice resonated through the hall. It is time for one of our most cherished traditions, the annual Survival Challenge. A wave of excited chatter swept through the audience. Jason and his fellow human students exchanged puzzled glances. This was the first they'd heard of any survival challenge. Dean Zixis raised his gnarled branches for silence. For those unfamiliar with the event, the Survival Challenge tests not just your academic knowledge, but your ability to apply it in harsh, unpredictable environments. Teams will be transported to a remote, uninhabited world where they must survive for one standard galactic week using only their wits, skills, and a basic survival kit. The human student's eyes widened. This sounded like something straight out of an Earth reality show, not an academic competition. This year, Dean Zixis continued, we have chosen a particularly challenging locale, the moon of Epsilon Crucis IV. Its extreme temperature fluctuations, corrosive atmosphere, and unique wildlife will push you to your limits. Holograms flickered to life around the amphitheater, showing scenes from the chosen moon. Vast purple deserts gave way to crystalline forests, while strange, amorphous creatures slithered and floated through the alien landscape. The human students found themselves both awed and intimidated by the harsh beauty of the world. Teams will be selected at random, Dean Zixis announced. You have one standard week to prepare. May wisdom guide your actions and fortune favor your endeavors. As the assembly dispersed, the human students huddled together, a mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. Well, Mike said with a nervous laugh, I guess all those camping trips back on Earth might come in handy after all. Sophia nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. We need to start preparing immediately. Let's head to the library and research everything we can about Epsilon Crucis IV. Over the next week, the Academy was a flurry of activity as students prepared for the challenge. The humans threw themselves into their research with a fervor that surprised their alien classmates. They pored over geological surveys, atmospheric composition reports, and cynobiological studies of the moon's ecosystem. Jason found himself working closely with Zerexa and a Volcran named Sulik, who had been assigned to his team. As they prepared, Jason couldn't help but notice the stark differences in their approaches. Zerexa focused on complex calculations, trying to predict every possible scenario they might encounter. Sulik, on the other hand, placed his faith in advanced technology, arguing that the right gadgets could overcome any obstacle. Jason, drawing on humanity's long history of exploration and survival in harsh conditions, took a more holistic approach. He emphasized adaptability, resourcefulness, and teamwork. Look, he said during one of their planning sessions, all the calculations and tech in the world won't help if we can't work together when things go wrong. And trust me, things will go wrong. Zerix's crystalline form shimmered with doubt. But if we can accurately predict the challenges we'll face, we can't, Jason interrupted gently. Not completely. The beauty and the danger of exploration is that there's always an element of the unknown. Our strength will be in how we adapt to the unexpected. As the day of the challenge approached, tension mounted. The human students, once seen as underdogs, had gained a reputation for their unconventional problem-solving skills. Now, many were curious to see how these deathworlders would fare in an actual survival situation. The night before their departure, Jason couldn't sleep. He stood by the window of his dormitory, gazing out at the unfamiliar constellations of Nexus Prime's night sky. The enormity of what they were about to undertake hit him anew. Here they were, the first humans to venture this far into the galaxy, about to be dropped onto an alien moon with environments harsher than anything Earth had to offer. The logical part of his mind knew they were at a significant disadvantage compared to species with millions of years of advanced evolution and technology. And yet, a strange calm settled over Jason. Humans had always been at their best when faced with adversity. From the first ancestors who ventured out of Africa to explore an unknown world, to the pioneers who had taken humanity's first steps into space, this challenge was a part of their heritage. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Jason made a decision. He would lead his team not by trying to match the aliens' advanced abilities, but by embracing the very qualities that made humans unique: their adaptability, their creativity, and their indomitable spirit. The day of the challenge arrived with a palpable sense of anticipation. Students gathered in the Academy's massive hangar, where a fleet of sleek spacecraft waited to transport them to Epsilon Crucis IV. Each team was given a basic survival kit, a marvel of galactic technology that nonetheless seemed woefully inadequate for the task ahead. As Jason's team prepared to board their assigned ship, Professor Lyrics approached them, his scales shimmering with what Jason had learned to recognize as concern. "I must admit," the professor said, "I had my doubts about including your species in this challenge. The environments you'll face are far beyond anything your world could produce. But," he paused, his multifaceted eyes studying Jason intently, "you've shown remarkable resourcefulness thus far. Perhaps you'll surprise us yet." Jason smiled, touched by the professor's words. "Thank you, sir. We'll do our best to make Earth proud." As they boarded the ship, Jason turned to his teammates. Zurich's crystalline form vibrated with nervous energy, while Sulk's scales had taken on a pale hue of anxiety. "Listen," Jason said, his voice filled with determination. "I know we're facing some incredible challenges, but remember, every species out there evolved to survive in their own harsh environments. Humans, we adapted to survive everywhere. That's our strength. We may not have the most advanced technology or the most specialized biology, but we have something just as valuable: the ability to think on our feet and work together." He looked each of his teammates in the eye, or the nearest equivalent. "We're going to face things out there that none of us can predict. But if we trust each other and stay flexible, we can overcome anything. Are you with me?" Zurich's crystalline form glowed with a newfound confidence. "Your words are most inspiring, Jason. I find my doubts diminishing." Sulk's scales rippled with agreement. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your human approach. I am eager to learn from it." As the ship's engines hummed to life, Jason felt a surge of excitement. This was what humanity had always dreamed of: the chance to prove themselves among the stars, to face the unknown, and emerge stronger for it. The spacecraft rose smoothly from the hangar floor, joining the others in a glittering formation. As they accelerated towards the upper atmosphere, Jason caught a last glimpse of the Academy below, rapidly shrinking into the distance. Whatever challenges awaited them on Epsilon Crucis IV, one thing was certain: the human spirit was about to face its greatest test yet, and Jason was determined to show the galaxy exactly what that spirit was capable of. As the fleet of ships entered hyperdrive, streaking across the vast cosmic distances, the true adventure was just beginning. The survival challenge would push every species to their limits, but for humanity, it was more than just a test. It was a chance to carve out their place among the stars. Defying expectations, the descent to Epsilon Crucis IV was anything but smooth. As their ship pierced the moon's turbulent atmosphere, Jason gripped his seat, knuckles white. The vessel shuddered violently, buffeted by winds that seemed to howl with malicious intent. "Atmospheric composition is highly unstable," Zurich's reported, its crystalline form vibrating with tension. "Corrosive elements detected at levels far exceeding our initial data." Jason nodded grimly. "So much for accurate predictions," he muttered. Louder, he said, "Suffolk, how's our shielding holding up?" The Vulcran's scales had taken on a sickly hue, but his voice remained steady. Shields at 62% and dropping. We need to land soon, or we risk complete failure. As if in response to Sulk's words, a particularly violent gust slammed into the ship, sending it into a spiraling descent. Warning alarms blared as the ground rushed up to meet them. "Brace for impact," Jason yelled, his mind racing through survival scenarios. In the split second before they hit, a calm settled over him. This, at least, was familiar territory for a human. The crash was brutal. Metal screamed and twisted as the ship plowed into the purple sands of Epsilon Crucis IV. When the dust settled, an eerie silence fell, broken only by the hiss of escaping atmosphere and the ping of cooling metal. Jason groaned, blinking away the disorientation. "Everyone all right?" he called out. Xerx's voice came from nearby, strained but functional. "My external shell has sustained minor fractures, but my core remains intact. I live," Sulk hissed, emerging from a tangle of wreckage. "Though I fear our ship does not." Jason extricated himself from his seat, wincing at what felt like bruised ribs. A quick survey of the crash site confirmed Sulk's assessment. Their ship was a total loss. "Okay," Jason said, falling into the calm, focused state he'd cultivated during crisis simulations back on Earth. "First priority is shelter. This atmosphere will eat through our protective gear in hours. Xerxa, what's the status of our survival kit?" The crystalline being moved to a compartment that had miraculously remained intact. "The kit is functional, but many components are damaged. Our long-range communicator is non-operational." Jason nodded, unsurprised. "All right, we'll have to make do. Sulk, can you scout the immediate area? Look for any natural formations we might use for shelter." As Sulk slithered out to reconnoiter, Jason and Xerxa took stock of their supplies. The survival kit, while damaged, still contained some useful items: a multi-tool, a compact water purifier, and a small holoprojector with partial maps of the area. "Jason," Xerxa said, its tone hesitant, "I feel I must apologize. My calculations, they did not account for the variables we encountered. I fear I have failed the team." Jason placed a reassuring hand on Xerx's crystalline surface. "Hey, no one could have predicted this exactly. What matters is how we move forward. Your knowledge is still going to be crucial for our survival." Before Xerxa could respond, Sulk returned, his scales coated in a fine purple dust. "I have located a possible shelter," he reported. "A cave system approximately 500 meters to the east. However," he paused, his forked tongue flicking nervously, "I also detected signs of large life forms in the vicinity." Jason nodded, his mind already formulating a plan. "All right, here's what we're going to do. We'll salvage what we can from the ship, then make our way to the caves. We move fast, stay together, and keep our eyes open." "Questions?" His teammates looked at him with a mixture of surprise and growing respect. They were used to more deliberation, more analysis before action, but in this hostile environment, Jason's decisive leadership was reassuring. The journey to the caves was tense. The purple sands shifted treacherously underfoot, while the corrosive atmosphere left a constant stinging sensation on any exposed skin. Twice they had to duck behind rock formations as large amorphous creatures floated by on the wild winds. As they neared the cave entrance, a bone-chilling howl echoed across the landscape. "Move!" Jason yelled, urging his team forward as a massive, multi-limbed predator burst from behind a dune. They scrambled into the cave, Sulk barely avoiding a swipe from the creature's barbed tentacle. Jason grabbed a piece of debris from their salvage and hurled it at the beast. The improvised projectile struck true, causing the predator to rear back with a roar of pain and confusion. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jason helped Xerxa drag a large piece of their ship's hull across the cave entrance, creating a makeshift barrier. As the sounds of the frustrated predator faded, the team caught their breath. Well, Jason said with a wry smile, I'd say we've officially started our survival challenge. Xerxes' form pulsed with what Jason had come to recognize as amusement. Indeed, though I doubt the Academy intended for it to begin quite so dramatically. Over the next few days, the team fell into a rhythm. They fortified their shelter, using debris from their ship and naturally occurring crystals to create a sealed environment, safe from the corrosive atmosphere. Jason's experience with Earth survival techniques proved invaluable, as he showed his teammates how to create solar stills for water collection and how to identify potentially edible flora. Xerxes' analytical skills came into play as they mapped the cave system and calculated the most efficient use of their resources. Silk's acute senses and natural camouflage abilities made him an excellent scout, allowing them to avoid the more dangerous predators roaming the area. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. On the third day, as they ventured out to gather supplies, they encountered another team, a group of axolotl students whose ship had also crashed. The axolotl were in bad shape, their water recyclers damaged and their supplies running low. We cannot spare our resources, Susluk argued when Jason suggested helping them. Our own survival is not yet assured. Jason shook his head. We can't just leave them. Besides, pooling our knowledge and resources might give us all a better chance. After some debate, they invited the axolotl to join them. It was a decision that would prove crucial in the days to come. As the week progressed, word spread among the scattered teams about the unusual alliance forming in the caves. Teams that had been struggling alone began to seek them out, drawn by rumors of the innovative survival techniques being employed. Jason found himself at the center of an impromptu survival school, teaching alien students how to start fires using crystalline formations as lenses, how to create simple tools from the environment, and how to work together despite their physiological differences. It's remarkable. Professor Lyrix's voice crackled over a salvaged communicator on the fifth day. We've been monitoring your progress, and I must say, the level of cooperation and adaptability you've fostered is unprecedented in the history of this challenge. Jason grinned, looking around at the diverse group of students working together to improve their shelter. That's the human element for you, Professor. We may not have the most advanced technology or the most specialized biology, but we know how to bring people together and make the best of a bad situation. As the final day of the challenge dawned, Jason stood at the entrance of their now expansive cave network, watching the harsh beauty of an alien sunrise. They had not only survived but thrived in an environment that should have overwhelmed them. Xerxes had joined him, its crystalline form reflecting the dawn light in dazzling patterns. You know, Jason, it said thoughtfully, when this challenge began, I calculated our odds of success at less than 12.8%. I now realize that my calculations failed to account for an essential factor. Oh, Jason raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Xerxes' form pulsed with warm light. The human spirit. It is incalculable. As the extraction ships appeared on the horizon, coming to retrieve the survivors, Jason felt a swell of pride. They had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as a united group that transcended species boundaries. The human element, it seemed, was proving to be a powerful force in the galaxy. And this was just the beginning. Triumph of the human spirit. The grand amphitheater of the Central Galactic Academy was packed to capacity. Students, faculty, and even representatives from various galactic governments filled the tiered seating, all eager to hear the results of the most talked-about survival challenge in recent memory. Jason and his fellow human students sat together, their faces a mix of anticipation and quiet confidence. The past week had changed them, leaving them with a new appreciation for their own abilities and a deeper understanding of their place in the galactic community. Dean Xixis took the stage, his ancient form commanding immediate silence. Young scholars, his voice resonated through the hall. We have witnessed an extraordinary demonstration of survival skills, ingenuity, and cooperation in this year's challenge. Before we announce the results, I believe it is important to reflect on the unprecedented events that transpired on Epsilon Crucis IV. A holographic display flickered to life, showing scenes from the challenge. Jason watched as images of their crashed ship, the fortified cave system, and the diverse group of students working together played out before the audience. What began as a test of individual team survival, Dean Zixis continued, evolved into something far more profound. Led by the example of our human exchange students, we saw disparate groups coming together, pooling resources and knowledge in ways we have never seen before in the history of this challenge. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jason felt a swell of pride, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. They had proven themselves on a galactic stage. The human students, despite their technological disadvantages, showcased remarkable adaptability and leadership. Dean Zixis said, "They introduced survival techniques that many of us, with our advanced technology, had long forgotten or never needed to learn. More importantly, they demonstrated an incredible capacity for bringing diverse groups together in pursuit of a common goal." The dean's gaze swept the audience, settling on the human students. In light of these extraordinary circumstances, the evaluation committee has decided to forego our traditional ranking system. Instead, we are presenting a special commendation to all participants of this year's challenge, with particular recognition to the human students for their exemplary leadership and innovation. The amphitheater erupted in applause. Jason and his fellow humans stood, somewhat awkwardly, as the alien students around them cheered and expressed their appreciation in myriad ways. From the flashing bioluminescence of the axolotl to the resonant hums of the crystalline beings. As the ceremony concluded, Jason found himself surrounded by alien students and faculty, all eager to speak with him. Professor Lyrics approached, his scales shimmering with what Jason now recognized as excitement. "Mr. Chen," the professor said, "I must admit, I had my doubts about including your species in our programs. I believe your technological disadvantages would prove too great to overcome." He paused, his multifaceted eyes studying Jason intently. "I have never been happier to be proven wrong. You and your fellow humans have shown us that there is more to survival and progress than advanced technology or specialized evolution." Jason smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "Thank you, Professor. We just did what humans have always done: adapt, innovate, and work together." As the crowd began to disperse, High Counselor Zixter approached, accompanied by Ambassador Chen. The sight of his aunt brought a wide grin to Jason's face. "Jason," Sarah said, pulling him into a hug, "I'm so proud of you. Of all of you," she added, looking at the other human students. "You've represented Earth brilliantly." High Counselor Zixtera's energy form pulsed with what Jason had learned to interpret as approval. "Indeed they have, Ambassador. In fact, the events of this challenge have prompted the Galactic Council to reconsider humanity's application for Federation membership." A hush fell over the nearby students and faculty, all straining to hear the High Counselor's words. "While your species may not have the most advanced technology," Zixtera continued, "you have demonstrated qualities that are invaluable to our galactic community. Your adaptability, your innovative thinking, and your remarkable ability to unite diverse groups. These are traits that could bring great benefits to the Federation." Sarah's eyes widened. "Are you saying?" "The Council will still need to vote, of course," Zixtera said, "but I am now firmly in favor of recommending humanity for probationary membership in the Galactic Federation." The humans erupted in cheers, hugging each other and their alien friends. It was more than they had dared to hope for when they first arrived at the Academy. As the excitement began to die down, Jason found a moment of quiet. He stood by one of the huge windows overlooking the sprawling campus of the Central Galactic Academy. The alien landscape of Nexus Prime stretched out beyond, a constant reminder of how far they had come. Zurixiv approached, its crystalline form reflecting the light of the setting suns. "Your thoughts, Jason?" it asked. Jason smiled at his friend. "Just thinking about how much has changed. When we first arrived here, I was worried we'd be seen as nothing more than primitive curiosities. Now you have shown the galaxy the true value of the human spirit. Zurich's finished. I believe I speak for many when I say that the Federation will be richer for humanity's inclusion. As they stood there, watching the alien suns set on this momentous day, Jason felt a profound sense of optimism for the future. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community, not through overwhelming technology or power, but through the very qualities that had allowed them to thrive on Earth: adaptability, creativity, and an indomitable spirit. The human element, it seemed, was destined to play a crucial role in shaping the future of the galaxy. And this, Jason realized, was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. As the last light of the suns faded, giving way to a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, Jason made a silent promise to himself and to all of humanity. They would face the challenges ahead with the same spirit that had brought them to this point. They would learn, adapt, and grow, bringing their unique perspective to the vast tapestry of galactic civilization. The human adventure among the stars had truly begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.